Wally Lewis, welcome to the Run Home with Joel and Fletch.
Yeah, thanks, boys. Thank you. Yeah.
How is it, Wall, up there? Is the sun shining up there and you're all skipping around?
Yeah, it sure is. Just got back, actually, so coming back and getting ready for a bit of footy coming up this weekend now. Looking forward to it.
Hey, Wall, where does that sit? In Origin deciders or Origin games, where does that sit for a Queensland supporter?
Yeah. Well, mate, you'd have to say that a lot of people are saying it's not the best ever, or it's not. They're hard to please. It's as good as any win ever previously. It was a game that not too many people expected the Maroons to win. So I've got to say that it'll be one that we're talking about for years to come.
Any mail on how your great mate Alfie Langer handled the night, Wally?
Well, I made sure I headed for the hills after they'd been on the celebrations for about 2.5 hours. And Alf had his famous singing, aye, aye, yippee, yippee, aye. Once that had started, you could tell that it wasn't going to be a good idea to be around him in the later courses of the night. So I headed for the hills, and he's still going. I don't think he realises the numbers on his date of birth. He's just one of those guys that he's hard to please.
Hey, sorry, Wally. I noticed last night where there was a very big part of the game where maybe it would be beneficial for the clock to slow down, and Alfie, who had been so punctual with the kicking tee all night, all of a sudden couldn't find the kicking tee. Brian, is that sign of something Alfie may do?
Yeah, I pretty much think that he may have done that accidentally. Somebody said it was accidentally on purpose, and Alf had a grin on his face, and he just said that it was hard to find at the time. So,
right.
That's the way that it went on. Would Alf have pulled something like that? You betcha he would have. 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Hey, Wally, with the Wally Lewis medal and Tommy Dearden obviously winning it, and was an awesome game, awesome series for him. Who votes for it? Is it just solely down your pick?
No, I think it's the selectors from Queensland and New South Wales do it now. Okay. I used to get a vote, but that was 10, 15 years ago, so I don't get a say in it anymore. But still very happy, mate, and honoured to hand out that trophy. With the guys that normally take out that are the best New South Welshmen or Queenslanders that have absolutely destroyed the opposition.
Hey, Wally, I was sharing before, and I shared it with a few young blokes that I coach, where, life is not always that easy, right? And sometimes people bail out when maybe what they were chasing was so close to them. I was telling Fletch before, there was a period of time early in the career of Tom Dearden where he was a halfback in the National Rugby League, 25 games in a row, and lost 25 games in a row. Could you imagine the head noise? And then after he'd lost game 25, if you said to Tommy Dearden at the time, that bloke Wally Lewis, that champion, there's a medal named after him called the Wally Lewis Medal, and that's awarded to the player of the series. Don't worry, mate, you won't be in game one, but you'll one day win this.
He was in game one. He was in game one.
But not a starting player. Not a starting player. Amazing, Wally, isn't it? Amazing story.
Oh, it'd be extraordinary, mate. And I had the opportunity of watching Tommy play in his younger days. He was at the Winner Manly Club, where I played my club football here in Brisbane, and he was one of those guys. But yeah, you're right to suggest that would have been the case. I don't think there would have been too many people disagreed. And I've got to say that when he was named as a halfback for this game, there were a lot of people that were sort of suggesting drama coming for Queensland against the Blues. They were predicting that it wasn't going to work for Queensland, and well, Tom had the opportunity to prove people right. And for all footy fans, no matter which side of the state we're on, watching wonderful performances like that are fantastic, and to see the development of a player is something quite extraordinary. And now he's going to have to live up to that each and every game he plays. But he's certainly not going to be short on determination.
Well, after game one, when they dropped the captain and halfback Daly Cherry Evans, what were you thinking there? Were you thinking, it's the right call, or because there was a lot of old Queenslanders saying, I think they'll give him one more chance, being the captain. He's played over 20 Origins. What was your take on it?
Yeah, mate, most people thought that he'd get one more go at it, particularly with Game 3 being the series decider. I think, most of the old-timers thought they'll hold on, they won't panic. Who are we going to put on there, Tom? Well, he's played in a couple of different positions. It's a while since he's had the number 7 jersey on and worn that with great pride. And Queensland have always had a bit of a thing, mate, where we like to give them one game too many than too few. And that, I know that sounds sort of strange, but I probably thought they may have gone that way. But the selectors have worked in, and I think the real indication was that's exactly what the coach wanted. It's what Billy Slater wanted. I know Gene Miles. I'm sitting alongside him at work every day, and the discussions were about who they could afford to put in there, and there were quite extensive talks who they were going to come up with after Daly, Cherry Evans, and there was also a little bit of discussion about we always say that we look after our players, and we're very loyal to the players. We don't sack them too soon, and there was a bit of an argument started in the media up here. Here we are, accusing New South Wales of doing this all the time. Now we're dropping one. Well, the only thing was that it turned out to be a wonderful call made by the selectors and the coach, and it worked. What will happen next time round, I guess only time will tell for that. But that's one of the best performances I've seen from a guy that was under enormous pressure, and he certainly deserves plenty of credit.
Hey, Wally, can we get a comment about this guy who, just a champion, whether it's coaching, playing, person, Billy Slater?
Yeah, wow. Mate, the emotion that Billy was showing in the build-up to this game, certainly that started when he was embarrassed to lose a game. I find him to be very cool, calm and collected, and that he was asking the advice of plenty of players, and no surprise, quite a few of those were the guys that he played Origin football with, and in particular guys that he played at the Melbourne Storm that tended to work together and always ask each other for a little bit of advice. I'd say Cam Smith would have had something to do with it. I don't guarantee that that's the case, but having worked alongside him at Storm, I'm sure that Billy would have been asking, who would you be using? And it just turned out to be the right one. They got the opportunity to be able to celebrate. I should imagine that if it didn't work, it would have been absolute disaster, and they would have been open for criticism. But they're the favourite boys of the media at the moment, having won that game.
Well, you said that Billy Slater is calm, cool, and collected. There's a former teammate of yours who I don't reckon would be described as that, old Normie Carr. Now, I saw Normie Carr in there in the dressing room with Lockie. He was absolutely blind. Tell me, what's Normie like? I want to have a beer with Norman.
Oh, mate, I've only just finished talking about Norm about an hour ago, and let's just say that there wasn't much that he missed out on throughout the course of the evening there last night. He'd had a couple of beers, and I've got to say that Normie, he used to be my sort of hero as a kid. I was a little lock forward, and I was watching Norm play lock for Queensland. And, when I was sort of 15, 16, 17 years of age, and used to love the way that Norm cover defended. His tackles were fantastic. But when I got the opportunity to partner him in the Queensland team, we had a few drinks together, and we were, well, I can say Norm was highly entertaining, and this is about the third report that I've heard that said Norm was certainly out in the open last night and having a great time. But it was just fantastic to catch up with him, and I've got to say that he was one guy that I had enormous respect for, because I was playing as a lock in those days, and a lot of the times I was modelling my game off Norm's on-field performances. I probably was very happy that I didn't hang around him when he was having a fair drink. I might have been dropped from a team or two.
He looks like good company.
Hey, Wally, I want to ask you this, Wal, because I'd be fascinated to know what a legend of the game and the legend of the state that you are of Origin. Billy Slater comes out of the blue and selects a fellow called Gehamat Shibasaki, a bloke who hasn't played a lot of NRL, a bloke who has been selected where you could have had a bloke like Reece Walsh in your 17, kept the hammer there. What was your initial thoughts of that particular selection, and what are your thoughts after the game?
Yeah, well, I'm probably I got a little bit of a hint that Billy had a fair interest in him, great interest in him. Every day I work for the Fogs up here, the old Origin players. I work with Gene Miles, who just happens to be one of the Queensland selectors, the former Queensland centre. He's the man in charge of the selection, and Gino sort of said, mate, he's really interested in this guy called Gehamat Shibasaki. He said, have you seen him play? And I said, well, Gino, to be honest, look, I've seen them play, but I really haven't watched Shibasaki play too much at all. And he said, Bill's really interested in him, really keen, reckons he can play, reckons he's got good form. He spotted some of the great points in his game that he's got, and he said he's a really strong defender, and his positional angle defence was the feature that really stood out. And he said we always need to stop New South Wales centres. Over the years, for decades, we've watched New South Wales produce wonderful centres, and he said we're going to have to stop them. And I said, well, that's going to be interesting. And I wasn't really sure whether he was able to convince or he was going to convince all of the selectors, but they all agreed, and Bill got exactly what he was after. And I can honestly say, after watching his performance last night, I don't think he'll ever be questioned again should he be selected.
You know what, Wally, now that you say that, you're talking about Gino, and I hope the great man's going well, and what a player he was. But you had the privilege of playing at times with Mal Meninga, or many times with Mal Meninga and Gene Miles in the centres, and people were saying, well, New South Wales have got, Stephen Crichton and Latrell Mitchell, and how on earth would a Gehamat Shibasaki and a young 10 or 12 gamer Bobby Toyer handle that? And it's quite remarkable how they did.
Mate, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I probably, every time New South Wales tipped the ball wide, I was starting to hold my breath a little bit and thinking, I hope the boys, work well. One of the things they didn't have was a lot of experience playing alongside each other, which can often be the difference between success and failure. If I had the great honour, the great thrill of playing inside Gene Miles and Mal Meninga, and you could drop off your communication a little bit because you knew what they were going to do, you knew when they were going to do it and where they were going to do it, and it just made you feel so comfortable to have newcomers come into the team like that, and like Shibasaki, who Gino sort of said, I haven't seen that much of him play. He's got something about him, and he's got some good size, and his positional play is good, he said, but we're sort of at a loss to answer the question whether he can handle it at state of origin level. And that was around for a little while. It's disappeared now, though, and I think we might be seeing him for a couple of years in a maroon jersey.
Wally Lewis, you're a doyen, unfortunately a doyen of the other state being Queensland. The medal's after you, and it's gone out, unfortunately, again, and we hate to say that, to a great home. Tommy Dearden, what a player, what a performance. You are an expert on NRL on 9, and you're an expert in the game, you're a legend in the game, you're an Australian icon, full stop. Wally Lewis, thank you for joining the Run Home with Joel and Fletch.
Good on you. Thank you, boys.
Hey, Wal, can you text me Norm's number, please?
Like, going through the Dearden highlights, it wasn't just attack. No. It's defence. And he's I feel like he's the biggest, like the secret player. You know how there's like players in different leagues that not much of the fandom know about?
Yep.
Is it because he's in Townsville? Like, we know he's a good player, but he's a legit star. He's good. He's amazing.
Yeah, but you know what?
He sets up stuff. He makes try savers. He puts his body on the line. It's both ends of the field.
But
he's not a glory boy. He's everywhere.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Love that.
I just
every single person,
Queenslander, but
Brooks, every single person who's ever coached him, and there'd be young junior coaches who go, I told you, he's a good, I told you. You'd love to coach this kid. And I shared this earlier. He went, and this will never happen again. Never again will this ever happen. Never, ever. He was a halfback, starting halfback in the National Rugby League between 2019 and 2021 for 25 straight games. and lost all of them. We will never, ever see a starting halfback. We'll probably never, ever see a starting halfback lose 25 in a row because they haven't been dropped or whatever else. Yeah. This guy lost 25 games starting halfback in a row. 25, Brian.
Well, maybe that has put him on this trajectory because he understands what it takes to win. And you say that about the Cowboys. He does what he did last night. He's doing that pretty much effort-wise every game.
People laugh at the West Tigers. Spoon. West Tigers haven't lost 25 games in a row. He lost 25 games in a row as the main man. And now, a few years later, he is the dominant
Wally Lewis medalist. We pick an Australian team tomorrow. He's your 7.
He looked like Michael Phelps up there with all the gold medals around his neck. It was ridiculous. And it was great to see. It was like, I love those sort of players in the NRL. I always went for the Steelers. They were never going to make the finals. I love heart. I love underdogs. I love players like that. And that sort of, my love of New South Wales was just put on pause for a while last night because seeing a guy like Tom Dearden just getting in the highest accolades in the game and just watch what he does, like at both ends of the field, it's just great to see because we somehow, and I feel Origin, we hype up players, right? We hype up people because they set up tries and they've got the stats and all this stuff. He's not really a big stats guy. When you look at it, some games he's like, you look at it and you go, that's impressive. He set up a few, he scored one. But it's what he does that sometimes doesn't come up on the match centre.
Yeah. It's one of the greatest Origin stories of all time.
The text I sent through pretty much sums it up. So he rushes out of the line to whack Cleary. This is in the second half. He's off the line. He's 3 metres in front of any of his teammates. Whacks Cleary. Cleary gives the ball away. Cleary tries to grab him on the arm to stop him chasing. He turns, chases. So he's already 3 metres in front, so he's got to turn and chase back 30 metres. He's the first one back there to get
Mate, he must be super fit.
Well, he's broken all those records up.
Yeah.
We had him in the. We were doing this push-up challenge thing, that lay down selling.
Yeah.
So we did with every club. Dylan Brown whinged for out of the minute. He whinged for 45 seconds.
Did he? Yeah.
And just gave up. Tommy was the only one. He goes, how long have I got to go? how long have I got to go?
It's a sign.
I said, Tommy, so instead of doing the minute, no, we pushed it out to 3 minutes, and he still did it. So everyone else was doing a minute.
Mate.
And we're going, Tommy, you sweaty? He was shaking. This is for a photo shoot.
Oh, mate.
He didn't even need to do this.
Oh, he's a Mickey.
He
Absolute Mickey. And to not even be picked, it must be hard for Daly Cherry Evans. You're sitting there, you lost the first game, and then this guy comes in, puts on the cape, goes into the Superman telephone box, comes out as Superman or Batman or whoever you want, take your pick, and then swoops upon. People are saying a 10 out of 10 performance.
Effort-wise, and probably tactically as well. Like, don't forget, he scored the 2 tries, but he set up. There wasn't many line breaks. I think he was involved with 2 of them. That one with the short ball to Cotter when he double pump, that was classy.
Can I tell you when I knew 2 things? I knew 2 things at this very same time. I knew we were going to get beaten. And I knew
Thanks for the heads up.
that humanity is still flying here in Australia. So out come the Queenslanders, 2-minute bell has rang. Out they come. So what you like to do on these big games, Brian, you'll say, and here come the Queenslanders, Cameron Munster, the captain, Allen. Out they come.
Our man Stevie Allen.
Yeah, so it's not about us.
Yeah.
Just shut up and let the crowd do the job. And I'm thinking, here come the boos. Munster let him out. And I reckon there was a reluctance to boo.
Of course there would be.
So you didn't get that big roar of a boo. And I was thinking, and I'm doing Blues Radio, which is supposed to be biased as, and I'm kind of feeling the same thing as the rest of the crowd. Like, would be kind of good if this guy got a win this week,
It was just, I was worried. So we progressively got worse from game 1. Game 1, obviously we win. Game 2, a little bit down. And then that was probably, well, it was our worst effort. I don't know what happened during the week. But we didn't look like we knew each other. In defence, blokes are going up, blokes are coming back, blokes are sliding. We got put under a lot of pressure by their edge back rows. And that was beautifully coached by Billy Slater.
Mate, wonderfully coached. Now, Tourist, I think he came up with this. Winning wallpaper. Was that yours, Tourist, where you talk about whilst you may win, you can't sort of smear over the cracks because it might bite you later. Game 2, New South Wales beaten. No changes. Well, one change, and I'll get to that change in a moment. Queensland, 1. Changes, not all due to injury. Mo Fodawaker out, Papali'i comes in. So that's saying that you come up about winning wallpaper, Tourist. It provided true. And your team, the Blues.
Yeah.
That's your team.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it didn't go the way. I'm sorry to all the well, I'm not, last year, first year supporting the team.
You're the mock.
Had the win. It seemed like it was all going great, and then, things go downhill from there, unfortunately. But it was so disappointing to watch.
It feels like at the end of the game, Queensland could play another 40, and we were busted.
Yep.
I felt like watching the game from here with Siebes and Scope and Jimmy last night.
Bruce.
It was Siebes, not Anthony Siebold.
Right.
Second name basis. Just knowing that from 10 minutes in, it was over.
Yeah.
It was over. The moment that try went in with Coates, you knew it was over.
The 7 tackle set when Jerome kicked it.
Yeah.
No pressure. We had what spun me out a bit was when I was watching. So we've got a debutant play on the left centre. Crichton went, righto, it's on here. Within the first 5 minutes, beats him once, slips that ball to Liam Martin. I went, oh, good, they're on.
Yep.
They're on tonight.
Yep.
They're going to target Shibasaki's side. They never went back there.
I know.
They never went back there. They just had this in their head. We're always going left.
Yep.
Do you remember when Thurston did his shoulder?
Yes.
They barely went down that side in
Oh,
Origin
yes.
too.
Is that when Joey blew up?
Yeah, he was on
the left side, wasn't he?
I was at the southern end watching it, and I'm like, why aren't they going there? It felt the same way, not because Shibasaki was busted, but it was like a debutant, and it felt like they kept going left, they kept going short side, they kept going down Latrell's side.
I wanted Munster to make 30 tackles. Guess how many he made?
14.
17, missed 5.
Wow.
17 missed 5. Would you not have stats on that and just going, he was on that side? Wouldn't you just go, right, okay, he's missed 5 tackles.
They were spotting someone because every time he was a dummy half Munster, he was going bang.
They were spotting Luai on their side.
Yep.
And the other side, it was Angus.
Angus.
It was Angus Crichton.
Yeah, okay.
So, but that comes from Billy doing the homework. When I was watching the game, it looks very much Melbourne-like. I can imagine in the dressing room, Billy was just going, as we know, you go to Melbourne and all you got to do is just do your job.
Yep.
Trent Liero had the game of his life.
Oh, look, I tell you now, folks, we too are also happy to carry this conversation. We are absolutely gutted to think that the Brumbies had the British and Irish Lions on the ropes, Brian, and it didn't happen. So if you want to talk about that stuff, we're waiting for you. Panther Pete, hello to you.
Good afternoon, boys.
Pete.
The issue around the losing to Queensland last night was that side, I don't think has got any immortals in that team. And that's the difficult part about taking the loss. If we'd have lost in Golden Point, okay. If we'd have lost at Suncorp and get a flogging. But to put in that display against that team, which realistically, individually, you're not going to say, wow, that's the greatest Queensland side ever to be put on the field. Nowhere near their 8 repeat team. That's the most difficult part. Plus, we've wasted now another decider at home. I'm sure next year the decider's not in Sydney, or if it's a decider.
Hey, Panther Pete, you've had some good times. You're running out of good time tokens, some would say, because you've been in the last 5 grand finals straight, including the last 4 premiership wins. I left there last night with an epiphany, and imagine there's a guy called Craig Bellamy who's leaving Accor Stadium last night, heading to P1 parking, and he's got the Blues polo shirt on.
He didn't get a park either.
Yeah, he didn't get a park. Sorry, he's getting his Lime bike.
Correct.
Right. And he's riding his Lime bike, and he's reminiscing about how the night that was. But there'd be some part of him going, hey, Craigo, I know time's tough now, you're on a Lime bike. But Stefano got exposed to a furnace and played very well. Coates scored the first try in the game. Grant was magnificent. Munster was awesome. Trent Liero played the game of his life. And that little Lime bike, Brian, he'd be riding that little Lime bike. You know what? He might even ride it back to the grand final. Chromie tourists, Chromie right now. The Melbourne Storm,
Franks?
I'm tipping Knights to beat them this week.
Yeah,
but they are morals to win this comp.
Franks?
Absolute Franklin Worrell.
Okay.
Absolute Franklin.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
No, I mean, they've sort of they haven't really hit their straps yet. You know, they sort of down there, they beat up on teams down there. But when they haven't played anyone of note when it's gotten tight, really.
Let the Knights beat them, folks, and then once the Knights beat them, we're piling into the...
I mean, they gave it to the Warriors.
Knights will beat them.
They gave it to Cam.
And then it's game on.
Well, that's always the way. I was just disappointed in our start. For everything's on the line, and it didn't look like, for whatever reason, we just weren't up for it.
Who was your Blues player of the match?
To'o, on one leg.
Yeah.
I thought Brian To'o tried his Chaminda out.
He did, yeah, I agree with that.
Reece Robson was okay in defence, I thought, but
yep.
I don't know. The back rowers, because, you know, I'm keeping an eye on the back rowers. You're allowed eight interchange. We only made 6. When Liam Martin busted his hand, and you could tell he was crook, why not put Hudson Young on? Hudson Young, in Origin 2, was brilliant. He turned us around in that second half. He only got 25 minutes.
Well, unless the osteopubis thing was worse than we thought, but my thing was, Brian, and we shared this on the show, at NRL level, the Queenslander who had scored the most tries was Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow with 15. Okay, so who is the Blues player at NRL level this year who has scored the most tries? We needed tries. Hudson Young was the most prolific try scorer this year in the National Rugby League.
Is it also safe to say after last night, don't carry 4 banged-up people into a Origin decider?
Banged up abroad.
Banged up abroad.
Yeah. Payne Haas wasn't at his best, and nor was...
He was still good enough to be in that team.
But Brian To'o, and that's what I'm saying, he was on one leg and was still our best player. What does that say about the rest of them? Because they would have all known that those 2 blokes are injured. They're going to say, well, we need to aim up, boys, because we've had our 2 best players who have carried us the last 2 series. How about we try and repay the faith?
Sean the Trader said this. I'm not going to plagiarise his stuff, but I totally agree. The play of the game was Bobby Toy's about to get thrown into row 17 on the eastern side. Somehow plucks it out of Chaminda. Hammer's there. And the irony of this play was that the hammer scoops it up. So Bobby Toya, who no one would have picked, Billy picks. Pulls it out of Chaminda, passes it on to the hammer, who no one would have picked at fullback, who comes in for Ponga. He's running upfield. He looks inside, and there's the guy who he hooked the Queensland captain, Billy Slater, for Tommy Dearden. Off he goes. And
that was your turning point. My turning point was 14-0 down. We're defending our line. 1:30 to go. Tackle 4. Harry Grant comes up from dummy half, who we know does this every week. You know, you've done tapes. You've got videos of him doing this. If there's a bloke on the ground, he's going. Reece Robson gets up. He beats 4 players. 4 players.
And the goalpost.
To score a try to make it 20. You had 1:30 to go. You had one more tackle to do. And go into the halftime break at 14-0 down, and Harry
20
Grant goes to 20. The game was lost there, and that pretty much epitomises, I thought, the hunger that they had.
You know what I noticed, right? So you probably wouldn't have seen this. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But so I've got the binoculars on, and as soon as Penley, Queensland, I've gone down there. I've got the binoculars on Jonathan Thurston, who is the 2IC to Billy Slater, and so he's going to the boys, going boys, and he's going roll on, and then. Munster goes, we'll take the 2, right? And then the next time round, Penley, Queensland, and I'm watching Jonathan Thurston. And Thurston's going, boys, 2. Munster goes, sweet, let's roll on. So that was
we're
beautiful stuff.
We're getting a lot of these, right? So we've got to talk about this. Serious question, is Laurie the right man for the job? What's your thoughts?
My major criticism for Laurie, and this is uncomfortable but we're both mates with him, Bruce.
Yes.
But, in what world is Kiraz the 18th man? I felt that showed we are a little bit complacent here. Yes, I understand Brian To'o was carrying an injury. I understand that. But if Canterbury have got in the ear of New South Wales and said, listen, we've lost Matty Burton a couple of times. We really need him. Can you pick someone else? And they haven't picked Burton. And I know that they didn't need him anyway. I understand all of that. But you can't tell me on any planet, right? So you could have had Kiraz in the position that Bradman Best was in that 3 extra guys, right? why was Matt Burton not the 18th man? And to me, that sort of screamed a little bit of complacency. And again, I know you didn't need him. But honestly, if your life was dependent upon it and you could only pick 18 last night, is there a better 18th man on the planet than Matt Burton? Like, why did we go with Kiraz?
Well, it was. Yeah, I can't tell you that.
So, okay, your argument could be Toto goes down. Okay, that's fine.
Well, you put Critter there.
You put Critter there and you put Burton there, right?
I
you had
thought
to have
it was
Burton.
strange. I thought it was strange. I can understand having Critter in camp to cover for Toto. The thing that I am struggling to grasp is people are saying Laurie Daly didn't have him up for the game. These are the best of the best.
Yeah.
You do not need a Churchillian speech to get you up for an Origin game, let alone a decider in your home ground, in your home state. And we didn't. It wasn't Laurie's fault, I feel, for that start.
Yep.
It's the individuals out there, and you could just tell by the first 15 minutes, our forward pack, there was something going on. Whether it was the Munster, you know, what happened to him during the week, and maybe subconsciously we weren't up for it. But to blame Laurie for us not getting out there, I find that a bit of a cop-out.
No, that's fine. I get that as well. And sometimes you just start slow. But what agitated me, this is Bruce, NRL 360, I showed clips of Kalen Ponga going to the line, bringing them up, left foot grubber, and catching out Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow. We did that with 30 seconds to go. And exactly that happened. Luai went to the left-hand side.
Is that a Bruce?
No, but what I'm saying is, like, if they're playing a game plan that is so rushing at you, why didn't we jam with a few of those just to say, boys, you keep rushing up, we'll keep...
We just got flustered. We got really flustered.
Yeah.
And it was like we sort of... I'm going to say it again. The first 5 minutes, we go to the right side and he runs around him. Crichton runs around Shibasaki with ease. That was the only time we went back there.
Yep.
Lomax
would be filthy himself. Like, you've got the world's best defender almost of all time marking. He's got his centre covered. And then Lomax come rushing in on Shibasaki.
That was man on man.
And then Coates off and goes and scores the first try. I think he'd be filthy with himself about that.
Communication. That's what separates us from animals. And that and opposable thumbs.
Yep.
Stop it.
What, you're still here? Well, you can see more on the Joel and Fletch socials and catch us live on SEN Radio, you beautiful humans.